The Eight Immortals Travel East, Chapter 29.
Imagine looking the absolute ruler of your known universe right in the eye and pointing to his most prized sacred possession and telling him, if you keep that, you will starve to death in a tower.
Right, yeah. And then, imagine the universe's incredibly bizarre response to that moment of ultimate defiance.
It's just wild. We are exploring a scenario that just fundamentally shatters our expectations of how cause and effect should work, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Because we like to think that if you lay a foundation of reason and follow the rules of logic and speak the objective truth, your life will stand firm.
Yeah, you do the right thing and you get rewarded.
Exactly. But today, we are stripping away that illusion. We're looking at what happens when a rigidly logical mind is thrown into an environment where reason completely fails.
And to do that, we are bringing you an extraordinary excerpt from classic Chinese text, Journey to the East.
Such a fascinating text.
Yeah, it really is. Our mission today is to explore a gripping story of extreme political defiance, the brutal consequences of speaking truth to power, and a mystical twist that challenges everything our main character, and perhaps you, the listener, thinks about how the world operates.
Yeah, so to set the scene, the story we're looking at is titled Saving the Uncle at Land Pass, Squeaking the Snow.
Quite a title.
Right. And it operates in this space where intense historical court drama violently collides with magical realism. To ground us, we are looking at the court of Emperor Tang Xuanzong.
Okay.
And the central figure is his outspoken, fiercely rational minister, Wen Gong. Oh, and hovering in the background is Wen Gong's highly mysterious nephew, Xiangzi.
But, rather than starting in the safety of the imperial court, let's actually start where this philosophy is truly put to the test. Let's start at absolute rock bottom.
I love that. Set the stakes.
Right. So Wen Gong, who is one of the most brilliant, powerful men in the empire, is freezing to death in a snowbank.
Just completely stranded.
Stranded in a violent blizzard. His horse is completely frozen in its tracks. The path forward is buried, the path home is erased, and he is starving.
It's bleak.
So bleak. How does a master of logic end up here? Well, to understand that, we have to rewind a few days, back to the warmth of the imperial palace, and look at the catalyst for this entire disaster.
Yeah, the inciting incident here is the arrival of two foreign monks at the court. And they present Emperor Tang Xuanzong with a relic, specifically a Buddha bone.
But this isn't just like an old archaeological artifact, right?
No, not at all. It is radiating this very specific otherworldly energy. The text describes it as having a red, glowing aura.
The glowing bone.
Exactly. And the emperor, who already leans heavily toward Buddhism, is utterly mesmerized by it. He immediately wants to bring this glowing artifact directly into the inner palace.
And the rest of the court is just absolutely terrified.
Oh, completely. None of the ministers dare to speak of its wrongness.
Right. Nobody speaks up. Nobody dares to mention that this might be a terrible idea. Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a modern CEO bringing in a completely unvetted, eccentric mystic to run the company.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. And the entire C-suite is just sitting there, too terrified of losing their jobs to say a single word. Enter Wen Gong.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is Wen Gong's reaction. He doesn't just disagree. He doesn't look at this glowing bone and feel a sense of spiritual awe.
What does he feel?
He feels systemic alarm. He views it as an inauspicious sign of heresy. So he decides to write a formal memorial, basically a petition, directly to the emperor.
And honestly, calling it a petition is almost too polite.
It really is.
It's an ultimate mic drop moment. It is a full-scale historical takedown. He bluntly argues that Buddhism is a barbarian religion.
He pulls no punches.
None. He brings up the ancient sage kings, right? Figures like Huangdi, Yu, Tang, Wen, and Wu.
The heavy hitters of Chinese antiquity.
Exactly. He reminds the emperor that these rulers lived incredibly long lives and had peaceful kingdoms long before Buddhism ever existed in China.
Yeah, he's basically saying, look at the original blueprints of a perfect society. There's no glowing bone there.
Right.
But then he goes on the offensives. He brings up the curse of short dynasties. He argues that since Buddhism was introduced during Han Menghi's reign, the dynasties have just been plagued by chaos and short lifespans.
And to really force the point, the text shows Wen Gong using this highly specific, brutally gruesome historical example. He brings up Emperor Wu of Liang.
Oh, this is such a harsh example.
It's wild. So Emperor Wu ruled for 48 years, and he was so obsessed with Buddhism that he literally surrendered himself as a slave to Buddhist temples 3 separate times.
3 times.
Yeah, and his reward for all that piety. He was besieged by a rebel named Hu Jing, and ended up starving to death in Taichung.
Starved to death. It's a brutal warning.
But I have to push back a little here.
Yeah.
Isn't Wengong being incredibly reckless?
How so?
Well, he's basically telling the emperor that his favorite religion is an empire killer that will end with him starving in a tower. I mean, that is absolute career suicide.
I mean, you're not wrong. But he is showing absolute fearlessness here. The conclusion of his petition is staggering.
What does he say?
He suggests that if the Buddha were actually alive, the proper protocol would be to give him a coat, escort him out of the country, and prevent him from confusing the public.
Wow. Just deport the Buddha.
Exactly. And since this is just a decaying bone, he demands it be thrown into fire or water, destroyed completely.
That is so bold.
And he caps it off by daring the universe itself. He says, if the Buddha is real and can cause disaster, let the disaster fall on Wengong alone.
He literally says, bring it on.
He does.
And the consequence of this is immediate. The emperor is absolutely furious.
Blinded by rage.
Wengong is instantly banished to Xiangzi, and he's forced to leave his family and hit the road that exact same day.
The speed of that fall from grace is just dizzying.
And this is where the narrative shifts from this indoor intellectual political drama to a harsh survival thriller. After just a few days of travel, things go terribly wrong.
Right. The universe answers his challenge.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text emphasizes his total helplessness. Heavy clouds gather, freezing winds howl, and a massive snowstorm hits.
And he's just out there in the elements.
Exactly. The snow is several feet deep, his horse cannot move, the path forward is lost, his clothes are soaked, and he is freezing and starving.
It's the absolute worst-case scenario.
He even tries to turn back, but the way home is completely erased by the snow. It's absolute rock bottom.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the physical environment here perfectly reflects his political reality.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right, because the court has shut him out, they've frozen him out of power,
Yeah.
and now nature itself has literally frozen him in his tracks. His logic can't save him here.
No, it really can't. You can't debate a blizzard.
Exactly.
But then out of nowhere, a man comes sweeping a path through the freezing snow.
Just out of the blinding whiteout.
Yeah, and it's Wengong's nephew, Xiangzi.
Which is such an impossible coincidence in a rational world.
Totally. And Xiangzi doesn't ask if he needs a blanket. He asks a highly specific, deeply cryptic question straight from the text. He says, do you remember the words among the flowers in the past?
Imagine freezing to death and being handed a riddle.
Right. Wengong just looks around and asks where they are, and Xiangzi replies, land pass.
And hearing that name just hits Wengong like a ton of bricks.
He sighs deeply. The text says he realizes that fate has a definite course.
He remembers a poem he had nephew previously started, Words Among the Flowers.
Yes. Clouds block the Quinling Mountains, where is home? Snow blocks land pass, the horse won't move. And he decides to finish that poem right there in the snow. Let's actually break down the lines of this poem because it's so revealing.
Let's do it.
Okay, so the first part shows this massive contrast. He writes, morning presented memorial to the ninth heaven, evening banished to Xiangzi 8,000 lights away.
That really captures the sheer speed of his fall from grace. Going from the emperor's court, the ninth heaven, to being cast out 8,000 lies away in a single day.
For you listening, a lie is roughly a third of a mile, so that's nearly 3,000 miles of exile.
It's massive.
Then he writes about his purpose. To remove evil for the sage emperor willing to risk his decaying years.
He's reminding himself that he didn't do this for ego. He wanted to protect the state, even at the cost of his own life as an old man.
And then,
Words Among the Flowers.
yes. Clouds block the Quinling Mountains, where is home? Snow blocks land pass, the horse won't move.
He's physically and metaphorically walled in. He can't see the past, and he can't move toward the future.
And then comes the absolute acceptance. He finishes with, I know you came from afar with a purpose to collect my bones by the miasma-filled river.
This raises an important question, right? Because for his entire life, Wengong had relied on logic. But this poem serves as the exact moment his rigid logical worldview shatters.
He just gives up the fight.
Not gives up, but he accepts a deeper mystical destiny. He acknowledges that his magical nephew came with a cosmic purpose to bury him.
Oh, wow. So he fully believes he's going to die out there.
He does. And having accepted this, they retreat to a relay station at Land Pass.
And that night at the relay station, the dynamic just completely shifts.
It's a total reversal.
Wen Gong, the man who just risked his life to denounce foreign mysticism, spends the entire night talking with Xiangzi about Taoist cultivation.
The term used is yushen, cultivating the truth.
Right. And the text explicitly states that Wen Gong was deeply convinced by his nephew.
The ultimate skeptic is converted.
Yeah. And the next morning, as Xiangzi prepares to leave, he gives Wen Gong a parting gift. It's a gourd containing a single pill.
And he tells him, take one. It protects from cold and heat.
So the guy who demanded a sacred relic be burned is now taking a magic pill to survive a snowstorm.
The irony is just fantastic.
And Xiangzi also drops a massive spoiler for Wen Gong's life. He prophesies that Wen Gong will soon return west to the capital.
He tells him he will be completely unharmed, and the court will actually use him again.
Which is incredible news. So Wen Gong asks if they will meet again.
And Xiangzi just says the date is unknown and he magically floats away.
He just floats away. Though the text does note that much later, Xiangzi eventually helps Wen Gong become an immortal himself.
Which is the ultimate twist for a former logic-obsessed bureaucrat.